Hello everyone, this is Fridge, and in this video I'm going to talk about a specific engine-related problem with Star Wars: The Old Republic. And before I get into it, I'd like to note that I am not a software developer or game designer by any stretch. I'm only speaking from experience as a top-end player, and I'm perfectly content to accept corrections or clarifications from, software engineers or developers. With that out of the way, client-server desinks are, for this video, disagreements between the game client and the game server concerning player positioning and orientation. I'm going to give you a very small example that I recorded for this. Okay, so you can see here, I slowed it down just so you can see what happens. Right when the knockback happens, you can tell that the server thought I was a few steps behind where I was on the client. I'll play it again. That's a difference of what? Maybe a couple meters, but that's a very small and innocuous example. This is a problem with a lot of varied symptoms. You can find examples of this rearing its ugly head in just about every gameplay type there is. If you've ever rolled on an operative or a scoundrel and been knocked back or pulled at the same time as you roll and gotten permanently stuck, that's a desync. That's actually one of the worst desyncs that can happen, because you can't really fix it without logging out. But if you think you escaped an AoE but got hit anyway, also usually a desync. Either the client drew the telegraphs in the wrong place, such as sometimes happens on HK-47 in the Revan fight, or on the Underlurker, or the server didn't think you were out of it in time, and sometimes AoE telegraphs are not perfectly lined up with the actual size of the real effect. Were you ever out of range of a target even though your model might literally be inside of theirs? Desync. As I just mentioned just a few seconds ago, the Underlurker is perhaps the most egregious recent example of this problem making life difficult for everybody. Because the boss moves so rapidly, player clients were improperly interpreting the boss's position and orientation, and the server wasn't sending the updated information. So, this engine issue is such a big deal because it causes all these frustrating and persistent issues and severely limits what the developers can do with their game. They can't introduce anything that can move too quickly, which is why, incidentally, 110% is the maximum mounted movement speed and why force speed can cause desyncs. Nor can they reduce reliable mechanics that require precise positioning without using goofy workarounds, which, as we saw with Underlurker, was a long and frustrating process. However, as you can see in this video, it doesn't have to be this way. This is World of Warcraft, and it's a very simple example of the kind of mechanics you can develop if you're not too worried about the odds of a desync happening between the client and server. This is very basic. Players are expected to jump over the fire rings in order to not take damage. It works pretty well, and the reason it works is, from what little I understand, WoW's servers trust client positioning more than the Star Wars servers do, which means they can reliably execute mechanics like this. The downside, as I understand it, is that it's easier for Sinister players to speed hack in WoW, for example. But honestly, I'd rather have the greater functionality and confidence in my own positioning that exists in WoW. I would rather that also be in SWTOR. In other words, I'd rather a few players get to cheat for a short time until they get punished than have the game mislead me about positioning. So my call in this video is simple. If it's at all possible to rework the client-server relationship such that desyncs are much less common if not eliminated, it would be worth EA and BioWare's while to do so because it improved the gameplay immeasurably. This investment would also save QA and development time spent in the long run, I would guess, because right now they spend a lot of time finding workarounds to common desync issues like with Underlurker, operative role stucking, etc. So unless and until that happens, I should mention there are a couple of ways to mitigate the desync issue for players. To force a client-server positioning update, it's as simple as either jumping or changing direction. Like if you're strafing one direction, maybe hit W to go forward for just a few steps to make sure the client and server update and get both on the same page as to where you are. People did that kind of thing in say, Dread Council, the people who were kiting Raptus on Nightmare because it was such a short cast time. After they walked through him, they would jump to force the server to recognize that they actually were through him and not behind him. If you ever hear anybody say they got butt cleaved, it's because of a desync. So definitely use your jumps and do change directions. Probably the most recent thing I could say about changing directions is we do this thing in hard mode revving called Happy Feet, whereby we just tap strafe a lot. So you can actually get a lot of your rotation, almost 100% of your rotation in on the core phase, even though you have to look in a separate direction for anomalies. That's a couple of things that I know of to help the issue on the player end, until and unless they fix this at Bioware. But that's about all I've got to say for this topic. Please like and subscribe if you like this kind of content. Follow me on Twitter. Twitter is right above my head. But that's it. Thank you all for watching. See you all next time.